The US wants its F-35 fighter jets to beat China and other adversaries, but the F-35 has components made in China. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by PC Doctor Toolbox. Monitor your PC for software crashes, hardware failures, and the kind of glitches that make your life miserable. Speaking of potential hardware failures, the F-35. It's one of the US's most advanced fighter jets. A lot of money and effort has been put into making the jet and keeping it out of enemy hands. To do that, the US safeguards its manufacturing process. This means keeping anything made in China out, which is challenging considering everything is made in China, even American flags. Weird flex, China, but okay. Last week, the Pentagon temporarily stopped F-35 deliveries after it was discovered that an engine part was made in China. To be more precise, it's Chinese cobalt and samarium alloy in the F-35's turbo machine pump's magnet. To be less precise, it's a Chinese whatchamacallit and an F-35's doohickey. The turbo machines are part of the integrated power package. That's the primary component of the F-35's power and thermal management system. According to Lockheed Martin, the developer of the F-35, the Chinese-made parts were sourced by a fifth-tier provider. Apparently, the Chinese alloys were used to make magnets. Those were sent to the U.S. to get charged by a U.S. magnet supplier. That supplier, in turn, was used by a lube pump supplier, which makes part for Honeywell, which supplies turbo machines to Lockheed Martin, which makes the F-35. It's supply chainception. The US military also discovered that the component has actually been in the F-35 for a really long time, since 2003. Every single F-35 fighter jet produced contains the Chinese-made component. You might be thinking, what's the big deal? After all, most of us have had something from China inside of us at some point in the last couple of years. Well, using any Chinese parts in US military hardware is in violation of US law. Military components aren't supposed to use specialty metals or alloys made by certain countries, including China. According to a Department of Defense official, this case is an example of supply chain illumination. Even the people who make these components can be in the dark about just how complicated their supply chains are. For example, one CEO thought he had 300 suppliers, but discovered that he probably had 3,000, and suppliers can change overnight. Yeah, it's probably not great if you don't know where or who things are coming from. It's kind of like finding a pie on your doorstep. Everyone loves pie, but if you don't know exactly how it got there, would you eat it? So what is the US going to do with every F-35 now that we know all this? Nothing. Yep, they're going to eat that doorstep pie. According to a spokesman for the F-35 Joint Program Office, the magnet does not transmit information or harm the integrity of the aircraft, and there are no performance, quality, safety, or security risks associated with this issue. So it doesn't anticipate replacing the magnets because that would be too costly and time-consuming. You know what's easier than replacing the Chinese magnets? Applying for a national security waiver for permission to keep using them. That's what the Pentagon is doing. This is outrageous. You shouldn't do away with something involving national security just because it's expensive and time-consuming, except of course for the TSA, but that's because they're also completely useless. Fortunately, contractors have found an alternative source for the alloy that will be used in future turbo machines. Why didn't they get their alloy elsewhere in the first place? It's ridiculous that US defense contractors would source anything from China. Even if information and flight operations aren't in danger from these alloys, this is a serious risk for the US military to have any Chinese components in their supply chain. If the Chinese Communist Party cuts off the supply of that component, and there's no alternative, it could mean the US can't make any more F-35s. This is like breaking up with your girlfriend, but still using her Netflix account. It shows you're not as independent as you said you were. Plus, I don't need her knowing how many seasons of The Great British Bake Off I binge in a single week. Hypothetically. But this isn't the first time the U.S. discovered Chinese parts in the F-35 and gave it a pass. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. The F-35 fighter jet has Chinese-made parts, which is against U.S. law. The U.S. military is hoping to get around the problem by getting a national security waiver so they can keep using the parts. This has happened before. Back in 2014, the U.S. government had given waivers for the F-35 to use some Chinese parts, including $2 magnets. Anyone else feel more secure knowing the U.S. military spent less on magnets used in fighter jets than I did on magnets used on my refrigerator? I know I feel way more secure. The waiver was justified with the same excuses, such as how we couldn't afford the time and effort to replace all the Chinese-made parts. Don't you wish you could use the same excuse when you mess up at work? Sorry we screwed up your order, sir, but we can't afford the time and effort to replace your milkshake with one that doesn't have pickles in it. Have a nice day. Back in 2014, Chief U.S. Arms Buyer Frank Kendall allowed two F-35 suppliers, Northrop Grumman and Honeywell International, to use Chinese magnets for the new warplane's radar system, landing gears, and other hardware. Yes, Honeywell, which is also connected to the latest F-35 oopsie. Honeywell has been caught using Chinese components even before 2014, and it applied for a waiver each time. The Pentagon had already on two separate occasions waived laws for Honeywell over Chinese-built components in U.S. weapon systems built in 2012 and 2013. So those aren't really laws and regulations so much as they are suggestions. Please don't use Chinese-made parts, otherwise we'll do nothing except ask you to sign some extra paperwork. Honeywell has also gotten in trouble for sending technical drawings to China. Last year, Honeywell was fined millions of dollars after exporting sensitive information on the F-22, F-35, and more to China and other countries between 2011 and 2018. A lot more. This includes engineering prints showing layouts, dimensions, and geometrics for manufacturing castings and finished parts for military aircraft and engines, as well as other hardware and weaponry. It was a gold mine for China, or shall I say a honey well? The U.S. government said that at least some of these exports to China harmed national security. They weren't as worried about the drawings sent to Canada and Taiwan. Honeywell defended themselves by saying that the technology in question is already commercially available, and that no detailed manufacturing or engineering expertise was shared. Honeywell also claimed that these designs were shared inadvertently. As part of the settlement, the State Department said it would not debar Honeywell because it voluntarily disclosed its alleged violations. So the U.S. military is happy to work with a company that harmed national security because they admitted they did it? That'd be like saying, yeah, my barber is a serial killer, but I keep going because he was totally upfront with me. Sang a whole song about it. So Honeywell only got a $13 million slap on the wrist. And the U.S. military suppliers continue to get components from Honeywell, even though they've been caught using Chinese components multiple times. This should highlight the dangers of allowing U.S. defense contractors to work with Chinese companies. Plus the fact that military contractors have also been duped into using counterfeit Chinese parts. In 2012, a year-long investigation conducted by the Senate Armed Services Committee found more than 1 million suspected counterfeit parts made their way into the Department of Defense's supply chain and were bound for use by critical military systems. This includes weapons systems, military aircraft, and missile defense systems. At this point, it might actually be safer to build our F-35s using fridge magnets. This is dangerous because the failure of a single electronic part can leave a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine vulnerable at the worst possible time. So even if Honeywell and other suppliers use Chinese components that don't send data to China, they can still harm U.S. national security. If any military wants to keep itself in the best possible shape, then they should keep their supply chains completely clean from China. Otherwise, they'll end up in a very sticky situation. And this episode is sponsored by PC Doctor Toolbox. There are many reasons your computer crashes, like buggy software, hardware failures, and general slowdowns with older computers. And the worst part is, your computer always seems to crash at the worst time, like when you're about to give a presentation or when you're on the road and there's no IT person around to help. Fortunately, there's PC Doctor Toolbox with remote monitoring. If you're concerned about the health of your computer and want tools to prevent untimely system issues, you should be using PC Doctor Toolbox. Stop crashes before they happen. And we have a special announcement for China Uncensored viewers. Toolbox is now free for personal use on up to 5 PCs with free remote monitoring. Use the link below to sign up and download your 5 free copies of Toolbox today. I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.